Hi guys, I'm Mike.
And I'm Stephen.
And this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to the F1 podcast, episode 3 of this new kind of F1 formed podcast, taking the good and the bad points of everything gone before. It's just basically an F1 chit chat from the week. Yeah, Stephen, enjoy your holiday?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Good.
And I'm back.
He's back.
Back again.
Got rid of that South African bloke. No, thank you, Tennis, for stepping onto the show. You can check out last week's episode of the F1 podcast, which was with Tennis from TF1 show. So thank you for stepping in for that. But we're here to kind of talk through the kind of some key themes from the Russian Grand Prix. New section, which will be our middle section of the F1 podcast, which is Jonty's stats, where he will give us some stats, ask us a question, and we'll answer it in terms of debate, and then we'll finish off with some kind of F1y rumours and opinions on Stefano. Is it Stefano Domenicalli? I feel like for some reason my mind's just gone blank.
Look, I'm
convinced he's Stefano Domenicalli. Anyway, Domenicalli becoming the new Formula One CEO. That's the main important thing. We'll talk about that at the end. So make sure you kind of hang around and stay tuned for that. But the race was won. I think the only one place to start off with. Valtteri Bottas wins his second race of the season. It's been a long time coming after that first win of the season was in literally the first race of the season.
Yep.
We'll get on to the Lewis Hamilton penalty part of it, but Valtteri Bottas.
Incredible drive, fantastic driver, and I feel like he's going to win the World Championship now.
It's natural. It's the only conclusions to make. All those critics, us included, we need a F off.
He told us.
Literally, we were watching the race, and when the radio message went, I just kind of went to Steve and I was like, well, I guess that one's directed at us. No, I think it was directed. I think pre-race there were some people who, obviously, we're critical of Bottas, but respect that he is a very talented racing driver. That can't be denied. He's just in a very difficult position that he has to be super talented to beat Lewis Hamilton as one of the greatest of all time, and he isn't quite that talented.
He isn't quite on that level.
No. But I think some people, that obviously is out of order. You don't attack the guy personally. Would you, Valtteri Bottas, turn down the Mercedes deal if you're a professional racing driver? No, you put yourself in the opportunity. He just isn't quite performing it. It's down to Mercedes hiring people.
Yeah, why would you turn down all that money?
Exactly, and we've given down the multiple positives before of why Valtteri Bottas and Mercedes is a really good fit. But over the top, his radio message? Yeah.
Come on now. Every time he wins, I'm always surprised when they go, and that makes it his 9th victory, or previously it'd be 8th victory. 7th victory, He's in the Mercedes seat. This is his 3rd season now?
Yeah.
Or was it 4th?
I believe it's his 4th.
And he's
because
only
he came
2017
races. Season.
9 races, sorry.
You can tell what Stephen thinks of Valtteri Bottas.
I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to upset the guy, okay?
It was
He's clearly very emotional.
Fortune favoured him with a rare and silly mistake by Mercedes, which led to Lewis Hamilton getting penalised. But you have to take advantage of those situations. At the very least, Bottas needed to do, as soon as Hamilton got those penalties, was to win the race. And that's what he did. And in the very, very unlikelihood that Lewis Hamilton has a catastrophic end to this season, he still has himself within with a chart. He's gained on Lewis. I
saw an interesting article, actually. I just popped into my head. Did Valtteri sabotage his qualifying in Q3? I say sabotage. Did he deliberately back off to try to get P3? Because in 2017 he obviously won from P3. and he was very happy. Well, he was mildly happy post-qualifying about finishing P3, saying it was a good spot to finish. And obviously Sochi, you have that massive long straight, very strong slipstream effect. So starting in pole isn't necessarily the strongest position. And as we saw, Valtteri nearly took Lewis into the first corner.
He did, but he got hit by a massive B. It was B-gate. That was it. Yep. The massive B ruined his chances of an overtake on Lewis Hamilton. I mean, guys, that B deserves to be locked up. I mean, in fairness, if a B has hit a Formula 1 driver's racing helmet at that speed, gone. It's disintegrated.
Yeah.
That B is no more. But
so yeah, that's an interesting thought. That did he actually back off, and that's why he was so far off Lewis.
Lewis Hamilton fans take it to all new levels to sabotage Valtteri Bottas's season by sending bumblebees in the way of Finnish driver. That's the headline right there. God. But yes, unusual. Bottas got the job done. I think that's all. Overreaction on the radio message, but I suppose it shows that he's human and the criticism's getting to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hamilton, penalty points, but then remove penalty points. Okay, let's talk about...
And then remove penalty.
Yeah, let's talk about the penalty.
Yes.
Right. Fair? Bless you. Fair?
Yes. Well, it's breaking the rules. It's in the rule book. And if it says you can't do it, and then it's breaking the rules. It's a fair penalty. It's black and white.
I'm glad we've cleared that up. Yes, completely fair on the penalty. I did say in driver ratings yesterday, check that video out if you haven't done so already. Or I might try cards. It might swing up there on top of us. But I don't know how to really do cards on YouTube. I really should. We've been doing this for a year now, and that seems quite a simple thing. But I don't know. But there might have been something up there. If not, enjoy me going with no real effect. But anyway, a bit unlucky because that is how a team as good and efficient as Mercedes are, but maybe it just shows that because they're under pressure from no one, they've dropped the ball on a few occasions this season, and this was the latest one, and they all tend to kind of really affect Lewis Hamilton, realistically.
Yeah. Yeah, with this pit lane being closed. I will say though, on both this occasion and the pit lane being closed, Lewis has got the exact same armoury as the team do when it comes to checking what the rules are before every race.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So Lewis should know what the signs are for closing the pit lane, and Lewis should know where you can't do a practice.
He should, but the radio message, I believe, was, I want to do this, can I do this? And at that point, I go, well, the onus is all on the team, because...
Well, if he knew the rules, then he wouldn't have to ask the question.
So he's got to take partial blame. But I would put more blame on Mercedes for this, because, they've then gone, yeah, go right ahead, Lewis. Don't see a problem with that. Lewis, they're going to give us a 5-second penalty. Do you
10
think?
seconds.
Yeah, the double penalty that was maybe a little bit.
Why? Because I think he did it twice.
Yeah, Lewis. He started and then didn't go through with it, and then did the one that was way down the pit lane.
Yeah.
Interest on that, but anyway, yes. The second part to this is you receive 2 penalty points on your licence, which. Max came out and said he thought it was a bit harsh. The FIA later retracted it, and Cranky Yankee, F1, obviously brilliant F1 YouTube creator with his documentaries, his latest one on Ferrari's worst seasons, did kind of a really good analysis, as always does. He is a stat nerd, is probably the nicest way to put it, in terms of on that video. But he was not happy. He was the most unhappy I saw of anyone on Twitter. He was just like listing of previous occasions. It was like, consistency was the gist of the thread, I think.
Yeah, it was in non-dangerous penalties, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where people got penalty points, and when it's been the team's fault as well.
Exactly.
Penalty points being given. So yeah.
He was like going, look, I don't necessarily agree with it, but the consistency or precedent that have been set by the FIA over, I think he listed like 3 years.
Yeah,
and he's like, I could have just kept going more and more. Lewis, there is no reason why they should have retracted the penalty points from Lewis, other than the fact that Lewis and Toto were pretty like, this is a vendetta against Lewis Hamilton type of comments in the media. Toto obviously is very clever in the way that he words it. You never think of Toto being vindictive, but he plants these seeds in the media, I think, for things like saying that Hamilton has gone through such adversity through his career, and it starts building a narrative. And Lewis was clearly very pissed off, which I expect to be. I'd be pissed off, in that situation with it, because on the day he knew that he could have won a race, and he wants to equal Michael Schumacher's record, and now he has to wait another race to do it. He'll do it this season, but
Well, Valtteri Bottas is going to win every race now.
Yeah, but the interesting thing on this fact is it was his licence doesn't get cleared until the Turkish Grand Prix, and this would have put him 2 points away from getting a race ban. But now with the retraction, it's a little bit safer again with only 4, so he'd have to do pretty much something seriously dangerous, I would say, to get a disqualification. So,
do you think if he was within 10 seconds of Max Verstappen, they still would have retracted it? Because they took away the 10 seconds as well. So if Lewis finished second by them retracting it, do you think they still would have gone through with it?
I don't get what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
Like, they made a decision and then they went, no. Well, you can't award a penalty and then suddenly go, no, just stick to your guns.
Well, it took them long enough to come up with the penalty.
Oh, it's absolutely ridiculous, wasn't it? But yeah, anyway, that probably rounds off Mercedes. Talking about the rest of the Grand Prix, let's talk about Daniel Kvyat. Obviously, me and Tinnis talk about, is it nearing the end of Daniel Kvyat's career? I think we're still both in agreement. This will probably be Daniel Kvyat's last season within Formula 1. But if it is that case, this would be his last home Grand Prix in Formula 1. Pretty good one to go out on.
Yeah. Sorry, he came out with quite a fighty comment, like, I can still be the best out there. Or on my day, I'm still the best, or something like that.
I think Daniel Kvyat is a hugely talented driver. And I think it shows so much in a team. And, we've spoken about, when speaking to drivers, so much in the driver's confidence is when a team fully support that guy and give him all the confidence in the world. And I don't think really any team have done that with Daniel Kvyat, with him since he was dropped from Red Bull. And I don't think mentally he ever recovered from that dropping of Red Bull. The talent's clear to see, and I think if he went to another series, you could see a very, very good Daniel Kvyat.
Yeah. You just can't see him with Tsunoda coming through and the Honda agenda.
The agenda.
Well, no one's going to stop him coming into that Toro Rosso seat, and you can't see Pierre Gasly getting dropped unless Pierre goes, screw Red Bull, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
But there's no other seats for Pierre to go to. So.
Exactly. And there's just, I can't see Daniel Kvyat realistically going anywhere else. I don't think his performances at the moment have been enough for people going, I must sign him, especially when you got Checo and Hülkenberg on the market.
Yeah.
I think those guys would easily be viewed above him in an experienced option within Formula 1. So that's why I just think it's sad, but it seems kind of a tail end. But it was, for me, my driver of the day. I know you went for Checo. On it, but yeah, I thought he had a very good Russian Grand Prix, considering how well Pierre Gasly has performed in recent weeks. I thought it was a big one to perform in. Yeah. I know, obviously, criticised for not making the Ocon move stick, but that Renault was a very good car that weekend.
Yeah.
And Ocon had just driven incredibly badly, but still to the extent that he had some life in his tyres.
Yeah. But you mentioned Checo. Shall we move on to Checo?
Let's talk about Checo.
Finished P4. Great result. Didn't seem at all in the race, but had a commanding lead over Daniel Ricciardo. Great race for him. With only second race since the big news of Checo being booted from Racing Point or / Aston Martin.
This was a performance of a guy who is driving for his F1 future.
Yep. He's come out and said his priority is basically to still stay in F1. He's only 30 and he's still got a lot to give. He hasn't ruled out any other options, but he wants to stay in F1.
I think with Gunter Steiner was I think I was talking to Katie about this. I think he did an interview, and I think he said his preferred option might be an experienced and a younger driver. So you'd theoretically think that would be Magnussen and a Callum Ilott, for example, coming up from Formula 2.
Okay.
Because, like me and Tinnis discussed last week, Ilott makes the most sense for Haas because Ferrari won't likely come knocking on the door for him as much as, say, if it was a Robert Schwartzman. And Robert Schwartzman has shown, I think, probably in this F2 season that he probably needs another year in Formula 2 to develop and progress before he makes that step up to Formula 1, though I have no doubt that he will, in one form or another, make it to Formula 1.
Yes.
And Alfa Romeo, if Kimi walks away, then potentially. But other than that, I don't see where his Formula 1 seat is, Checo, unless it is that experienced seat at either Alfa or Haas.
Or Red Bull go crazy and bring in Checo.
Now, yes, this is heavily reliant. Well, that actually, we'll talk about that more at the end of the video.
Yes,
I think.
Yeah, we'll come on to Red Bull later.
We'll talk about that. We'll stick about the race, and that's pretty much it for the race.
Leclerc, another fantastic drive, slogging around that Ferrari into P6, and clear as day as two different cars in that Ferrari garage.
Yeah, I mean, I think actually it's very interesting to hear, what people think on this one. So I would describe, and actually someone did online on Twitter put the two incidents together. Leclerc had full lock, but he clipped a bit of curb, and so he understeered into Lance Stroll, which at the start of the race, which clipped his tyre and sent Lance Stroll into the race in the wall, ending his race.
Yeah.
Lewis Hamilton early in the season, we know, Austrian Grand Prix, understeered a little bit, had full lock on his steering, but did essentially the same thing, clipped wheels with Alexander Albon and essentially ended Alexander Albon's race. Lewis Hamilton received a 5-second penalty. Charles Leclerc racing incident. Now the difference is the fact that Charles was at the start of a Grand Prix, so they're always more lenient, I would say, on incidents at the start of Grand Prix, and Lewis's was after a safety car restart.
Yep.
But that's where I kind of feel it is. It's a racing incident, and I think it shows that type of incident can go either way. You've got the two extremes of it, but that would be the only notch against Charles Leclerc all weekend, I would say.
The only thing I would say with the Lewis being after a safety car, surely a safety car is, I know it's not the same as a standing start, but it's pretty similar with everyone bunched up. Surely the same kind of leniency is always given to a safety car restart as is the first lap of a race.
Well, in theory, that would probably be a good idea if that's your theory, that if cars bunched together, there's going to be more kind of cars close together going in corners. It might be better to apply that, but I don't think the FIA do apply that logic. I think it is very clear that first lap incidents have a lot more breathing room than any other time in the race on the same instance.
Yeah.
But, essentially both ended people's races and should Should they be penalised? Should they or not? I know there was a lot of upset actually over the Charles Leclerc incident on the fact that a lot of people thought he should have been penalised. Stroll incident.
Well, yeah, it's just a driver error, isn't it? So
A driver error that cost someone their race.
yeah.
But yeah, that's an interesting one. Penalties and decisions, not to decisions.
Bar that, he did have a very good race.
He did. He certainly did. That is certainly the focus there, and another strong weekend for Renault. Could have probably been stronger, but it was still very good for Renault.
Yep.
In the constructors.
Any other standouts? Probably not. Gio, best race of the season.
Yeah, Gio and Magnussen both had very good races for those Ferrari-powered cars.
Magnussen finished the race.
So, well done, Kevin! Yeah.
And when Magnussen finishes a race without problems, he tends to do incredibly well in that house. And he's done it again. Yeah.
It was nice to see the luck change a little bit for Kev.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's pretty much the race, because we're going to touch on Red Bull there, so yeah.
So yes. So now on to the... Well, obviously, we brought Jonty in for our stats on our previews. We binned the previews, and then we kind of did some like feature videos building up to weekends. But yeah, we might still do them, but they didn't really kind of seem popular with anyone, so we kind of didn't do them. But we're like, Jonty provides great stats. We want to keep stats in. So we've now got a part of the podcast. Jonty will find some interesting fun stats, and we will then he'll give us a question to discuss. So the question is, he's found some stats of some drivers who'd be considered in the greatest of all time bracket, and he's given us the stats for their debut race. And we've got to discuss who we think. The question is, who had the best debut out of these drivers?
Okay, it's going to be easy.
Okay, right. So, Michael Schumacher had his debut with Jordan in the 1991 Belgian Grand Prix. His qualifying position was 8th, later changed to 7th due to Patrese penalty. His race position was DNF, very early on there. And obviously, you know, his career highlights is 7 times Formula 1 World Championship, 91 race wins, and 68 pole positions.
Yep.
You've noted that?
Started and incredibly well in his debut, finishing in an incredible position, and that summed up the rest of his career. Clearly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Lewis Hamilton is the next one on the list. Obviously, debuted with McLaren in that season, partnering Fernando Alonso. His first race was the 2007 Australian Grand Prix. He qualified 4th and finished 3rd. His career highlight is obviously 6 World Drives Championships to date, soon to be 7. 90 race wins, still in that case as of the weekend, and 96 pole positions. And obviously, you know, he's a human rights and social activator in it kind of recent times.
Is that part of the...
That is genuinely...
part of the entry.
That is part of the entry, in terms of that.
What are your hobbies and interests?
Human rights and social commentator. But yes.
What was Schumacher's hobbies and interests?
Winning.
He has a model train set.
He's... Yes. I think he just liked going fast, to be fair, Michael. Nothing to there. Next one on the list, Juan Manuel Fangio. Start with Alfa Romeo, of course. 1950 was his the British Grand Prix. Qualifying
First
position
race
was
of the
3rd.
F1.
Yep. Race position, he DNF'd. But obviously, career highlights for Juan Manuel Fangio: 5 World Drivers' Championships, 29 pole positions, 24 race wins, and 5 titles. Those 5 titles were with 4 different manufacturers. Ooh. And has the highest winning percentage of any driver in F1 history.
Jeez. So where did he qualify?
He qualified 3rd. Nice. But the Alfa Romeo was a very
dominant.
Strong.
It was a Alfa 1, 2, 3, 4, wasn't it?
Indeed. Right, we've got a lot. I might have to speed through in terms of what we're going for. Right.
Skip the hobbies and interests.
Sebastian Vettel, team BMW Sauber. First race was the 2007 United States Grand Prix. Qualifying position, P7. Race position, P8. Driver, Alain Prost. Team, McLaren. First race, 1980 Argentine Grand Prix. Qualifying position, 12th. Race position, 6th. Pretty decent for Alain. Ayrton Senna, Tolman. 1984 Brazilian Grand Prix. Qualifying position, 17th. Race position, DNF. Jackie Stewart. Team, BRM. First race, 1965 South African Grand Prix. Qualifying position, P11. Race position, P6. Driver, Niki Lauda. Team, March. 1971 Austrian Grand Prix. His home race was his first ever race. Qualifying position, 21st. And race position did not finish.
Strong.
Incredibly. Driver, Nelson Piquet. Team, Ensign. First race was the 1978 German Grand Prix. Qualified 21st. Race position, DNF.
DNF strong. Lots of multi-world champions DNF in their first race. I feel like this is a recipe for success.
Absolutely.
Debut,
so there are any
you need
debuts,
to crash out or just not finish.
If there are any debuts out there and they DNF'd in their first race, feel like you're on for greatness, lads.
Yeah.
Driver, Jim Clark. Team, Lotus. 1960 Dutch Grand Prix was his first race, qualifying position 11th, and his race finish was DNF.
Get in there.
Follows the trend. Follows the trend. I mean, it's limited, and I can't remember.
Is that the list?
That is the list. So I can't remember too many of the debut races. Obviously, the Schumacher one, I remember the qualifying was a standout performance, but yeah, I suppose the qualifying has to come into debut. Lewis Hamilton, it was pretty...
The only man on that list to get a podium on his debut.
Correct, but you do have to think the 2007 McLaren was an incredible car.
Yeah.
But one of the highlight moments of that is obviously him overtaking Fernando Alonso around the outside, I think, in turn 1 is the iconic moment with Lewis Hamilton. And it's always like, and at that point, people knew that Lewis just wasn't there to be a young rookie. Type of cheesy cliches, perfect for kind of like greatest of all time videos, but a very good debut. Two on those lists that probably stand out to me in terms of being in lesser teams of the time.
Oh, okay. I wasn't paying attention to teams. My two were Jackie Stewart and Alain Prost.
Yes, those were going to be the two.
We nailed it.
Those were going to be the two. Because it's difficult. If they DNF, it's difficult on debut. But
if you DNF, you're destined for greatness. If you finish P6, you're destined for greatness. And if you're Lewis Hamilton, you're destined for greatness. That's the recipe I got from all.
Yeah, that's what I got. Loads of recipes for greatness. There are a lot of recipes.
I don't know why
there are multiple ways to cook your world champions. That's what we're getting at. No, but who's the greatest? Just purely looking at stats front. BRM were a reasonable team.
What was the question again?
It was who had the best debut out of these guys.
Okay, so it's what, between Jackie, Alain and Lewis?
Maybe you should have checked this out before, but we just prefer the numbers.
All about the numbers.
Just we've seen these, and on paper, who had the best debut? I mean, on paper, realistically, it's Lewis Hamilton. Because he's got the highest finishing position. Technically, had a brilliant car, but yeah.
Who are you going for?
I'm going to go for...
We don't want on paper.
I'm going for Jackie Stewart.
Bam.
I'm going for Jackie Stewart. I think Lewis Hamilton's debut was incredibly impressive, especially that move around Alonso around the outside in Australia. But Jackie Stewart, I think, impressive.
I'm going for Lewis because it is a podium. He was a rookie. It may have been an incredible car, but how many rookies have we seen bin it or DNF'd, as the list shows? And he got a podium.
Kevin Magnussen got a podium in his debut for McLaren as well.
Damn, why wasn't he on the list? Because he's not a world champion.
Yeah, no, there might have been a few eyebrows raised on that, although I'm pretty sure Katie in the comments would have gone, he deserves his place there, of course. It's still early days.
I go for Lewis. The car, it may have been like a minimum to come third or fourth in that McLaren, but he still did it. And so I'm giving my greatest debut to Lewis out of that list.
Lewis, Jackie Stewart, what's your answers to Jonty's stats question of the week down below? We'd love to hear from them. But we now move back into just F1 chit-chat. So we mentioned we're kind of going to talk about it a little bit later on. So Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly, you read an article which pretty much means...
Stephen's rumours.
Oh, rumours. Whoa.
It is foretold. Pato Award is joining Mercedes. Ooh.
Pato! Oh, look, this is perfect. No, Pato Award is obviously going to win Indy titles with the Arrows McLaren SP team. But obviously, if you want to know more about Indy Fanatics, we have an Indy Fanatics team channel. We have a team. We're going racing. So make sure you kind of go and subscribe to that. Check that out.
Is that going to be another card?
Yeah, go and check out our latest. Well, obviously later today, you'll have the IndyCar podcast, where we'll talk lots of kind of changes going on there. That's a chaotic episode. You should probably check that out.
Yes, but back to F1. Back to Stephen's rumours.
Whoa!
Well, it's not really a rumour. Christian Horner. Bam! Everyone's confused what's happening at Red Bull. Christian Horner's laid it down in black and white. Not really, because it's Red Bull and everything changes when it's been spoken or written and nothing's true.
But at this very moment in time, this is true. Stephen?
Christian Horner has basically said AlphaTauri need Pierre Gasly to remain competitive and have basically implying a younger guy to come into the team. So basically saying, we're happy for Pierre to stay at AlphaTauri. It's good for them. It's probably better for Pierre and it's good for us. And Alex Albon is our first choice, our preferred choice to partner Max. But he didn't out and out write off another move because they planned to activate the clause in Albon's contract to renew again, but they haven't done it yet. So obviously they could go external, but it's either going to be Albon external for that Red Bull seat.
And who is searching for a Formula One seat after being ousted by the team they were loyal to and rated highly as a midfield driver who could probably come and challenge Max Verstappen and at least be the experienced driver to help the development of the car and consistently score points and put the car where it needs to be?
I just don't know. Is there such a driver out there?
I don't think so. Oh, of course, Checo. I think it's starting to gain a bit of momentum now. Obviously, people stole our idea that, we put, me was saying for ages on live streams that who would I put in that Red Bull seat?
Checo.
Sergio Perez. Clearly, they've all stemmed it. I'm claiming all the credit from this idea as well. I'm the first one, clearly, to have ever thought this idea before. But I do think Red Bull, Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen would be a fantastic partnership driving the team forward. That would be a smart move for all parties concerned, and let Alex Albon go and develop down in AlphaTauri again, and they would then have a very strong team in...
would he have a seat at AlphaTauri?
Well, that's very true. I presume they would have to, because Tsunoda isn't going to win. So unless Honda were like, we're putting the full program unless you give Yuki Tsunoda a seat.
Well, because Yuki's objective was to finish in the top 4, wasn't he?
Yes.
So he doesn't have to win.
No. He'll get the points, but they can leave him in F2 if he wins the championship.
Oh, do you have to leave?
You have to leave.
That sounds quite mean.
Well, because the whole point is...
You've had your fun, now go somewhere else. Play with some other kids.
No, but you see, it's a feeder series, isn't it? So it defeats the point if they just keep staying in. It's like multiple Formula 2
But what happens
champion.
if the main feeder is not hungry for the feeders?
Then other series like IndyCar and Formula E will snap them up.
Oh,
And
nice.
Super Formula.
Nice.
They will.
But yeah, that rounds up Stephen's rumours.
Oh, God, it's great. I hope you've enjoyed that middle part of it. But rounding off with the news that Stefano Domenicali. Now, I think this came out announced after, or me and Tinnis might just have forgot to talk about it. I don't know. But anyway, Domenicali, former Ferrari boss. I believe he worked with Porsche. And also he has currently been with Lamborghini recently. Also stuck with the FIA on their single-seater committee or part in terms of that. But yes, Stefano Domenicali is now taking over from Chase Carey, Mr. Mustache.
Yep, he's coming in non-executive, I think.
He's basically wants to help, but doesn't want to get in the way. Essentially, I believe this role as CEO is probably... he said he looked knackered when talking, to be fair. This has probably been an incredibly tense time and he's just basically gone unbroken. But he's been living in London while his family is still living in the US. Like, for personal and work-life balance, that can only work for a short-term basis. And I think Chase... He's done a fantastic job driving the sport forward, and now I think it's no thing. Chase is a businessman. He's a background in kind of media. He was a great guy to take F1 into the 21st century, which I think it had been lacking a little bit.
Yeah, the transition from Bernie to the future.
Yeah, and now Domenicali is very much a motorsport racing man, and obviously everyone has been super positive about his appointment because, well, you're not going to be negative about it because he's the CEO and probably could make your life very uncomfortable if you suddenly go, Domenicali, what? How have they selected that guy? This is just a Ferrari club now, not paying attention that obviously I believe Jonty won't be running for presidency after this stint. I believe he said that, unless he's gone back on his word. Potentially. So Jean will be leaving. Ross Brawn obviously is a very key figure within the FIA. Strong, successful ties to Ferrari, but also
the dream
Mercedes.
Team is getting back together.
The team's getting back together, guys! Woo! But I believe it's been long enough that Domenicali has been away from Ferrari. Yeah. Obviously, you know, like anyone, he will have kind of soft spot and stuff. But I don't really think that it's going to affect his decisions too much. Whether he will be the right man anyway, out of the fact that he had previous ties to Ferrari, whether he's the right man for the job, I guess only time will tell. But you've got to give the guy an opportunity. He's highly respected, vastly experienced, knows Formula One inside out, worked in Formula One through very kind of competitive years during the 90s and the 2000s as well, and obviously 2010s as a team principal. So he knows various roles within Formula One. He knows the sport as a whole. He knows the single-seater as a whole. I think on paper, I don't know really the criticism too much. It looks a smart move.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stephen, literally before we were filming this, Stephen was like, I don't really know much about Domenicali, so
I'll let you do this.
I was like, Domenicali, he's been working site going. I don't really know much about Domenicali, so you probably just talk about it. So that's all you're getting from me. That's the round-off, and that's Stephen's input of literally like...
The dream team's going back together.
The dream team, come on, guys! But yeah, that's it for another F1, the F1 podcast, because we are that arrogant that we've said... Every other F1 podcast, cast aside, we are the F1 podcast.
Copyright it.
We have copyrighted it. Maybe F1 might get a little bit upset if we...
This video is sponsored by... No, that was
No, listen, don't do that. Don't do that. We can't do that. Anyway, we hope you've enjoyed, guys. Comment down below with all your thoughts from the Russian Grand Prix, Stephen's rumour section, and Jonty's stats, and Domenicalli, obviously appointment as Formula 1 CEO. Obviously, it was officially announced in Friday practice, although it was pretty much 99.9% confirmed earlier in the week. Before it happened like that, Crofty was trying to be dramatic there and go, breaking news! I was like, we know.
We know.
But classic Crofty. Anyway, comment down below with those things. If you're new around here, haven't done so already, Stephen, what can they do?
You can like, subscribe, and ding that bell.
Ding that bell. So, you F1 fans, it's time for us to go. So, stuff like that. What a terrible end to the video. You can't end a video like that. Right, anyway. Right, that's it from us today. So you F1 fans, keep racing.